Hey, welcome to the award-winning Mad Radio Show with John and Sam. We are your first responder network in bringing and helping healing our heroes through resources, workshops, and real talk about life on the job and life what we do after the job. Today we have some great guests on, all the way from Aurora, Illinois. Sam?
Yeah, it is a great show. It's great to see you.
Same here.
It has been a crazy, awesome, busy week. For everybody out there, if you're a first-time listener, you know that John and I run an organization called A Badge of Honor, and we are so happy to be able to announce a new partnership with Veterans Resource and Outreach Center up the street from me in beautiful Rowlett, Texas. Super excited about that. And so we will be, in addition to doing our first responder workshops there, we'll be integrating in some family first responder workshops and some other fun things that are planned. And so look for us to roll that out to you all soon. Appreciate all the support. As you all know, we're a brand new nonprofit domestic corporation here in Texas. Still waiting on the government. Yay, IRS. Come on, send some good vibes. Good vibes that we get our paperwork back so we can kick off with a huge fundraiser, have everybody out. And John, you want to tell everybody about Heroes Memorial Bridge?
You know what? Yeah, I was going to just jump in. I didn't know you were going to segue that in, but that's a great Rowlett is a great segue for what we're going to be bringing up. If you can see behind me, Heroes Memorial Bridge. We started that in 2017 with just 11 people on a mission to raise awareness for post-traumatic stress. And it turned into a global movement where now we're even walking the bridge in the UK. And what now on Heroes Memorial Bridge, we walk to remember those and give those a chance to reflect on the people they lost in their lives due to post-traumatic stress. We are now building the first ever in the nation. Actually, it's global. We can't find any place in the world like this. It is a national park, 22.5 acre national park that will have a reflection area. We'll have areas for each first responder line of service: fire, police, EMS, corrections, 9/11 telecommunication operators, and we will also be representing all branches of the military service. Each place will have their own reflection points with a monument in their honor. Blue Help out of Massachusetts has built designed a beautiful center monument representing all first responders and veterans. We will have an amphitheater. We will have a welcome center. So organizations across the country could come. They could share their resources with others. It will also be a place for families to sit and reflect on the way their loved ones lived and not in the manner of how they died.
And so where can we have a website set up, and what's that website so people can go over there and check it out?
Right now it is, you can look at www.walkthebridge. Do you still have to say www, or am I getting too old?
I don't think so.
Facebook? Is it like the Facebook or the internet?
The Facebook, the gram, Instagram.
Yeah. Have to go www? No,
I don't think so.
All right. So it's Walk the Bridge, walkthebridge.org. And there you can find updates and progression reports on how the park is coming about. Actually, today I got some good news, which will be relayed this week. We released the schematic of the bridge of the park 2 weeks ago. Now we have a 3D virtual walkthrough of the park that the architects have just released to us. And now we're going to release that this week. That means you can go on, you can virtually walk through the park, see the different aspects of the park, and even go to the reflection point that overlooks Lake Ray Hubbard and Heroes Bridge. I think this is going to be a tremendous healing aspect for families, a way to network, connect, and remember their loved ones. Because let's face it, in our nation right now, we have a huge stigma on post-traumatic stress, And a lot of places do not recognize when a first responder or even a veteran takes their life. They don't remember what they did, how they served our country. They just look at them as how they left. So we're gonna smash that stigma by taking a huge step and building this park.
And please, if you're in the DFW area, please join us on the bridge the 22nd of every month, where we walk a ceremonial 22 miles for 20. It's more than 22, unfortunately. Veterans, first responders take their lives every day, but we do a mile up and a mile back. We meet on the rock wall side of the bridge and we walk towards Rowlett 1 mile, turn around and go back to Rockwall. So that's the 22nd of every month at 6:30 p.m., 18:30 hours for all of you first responders listening out there. And, John, you just said it best, is that it's about highlighting, bringing awareness, because we do have to smash that stigma. You, me, Jeff, and John do it through a badge of honor, and our guests tonight do it through an organization called Blue Courage. Now, it's no secret. The word courage goes with law enforcement, goes with the word hero. Their logo is a lion. I'm kind of partial to, we're kind of partial to those lions. And the cool thing was, I had never met our guests. I was taking part in a worldwide summit on awe, AWE, awe. We had practitioners on talking about how awe relates to resiliency and how we can build our resilience to be better first responders. Have to be put on by NYPD. They hosted it again, and one of our guests presented, and I was immediately drawn to what she was talking about. And I was like, I am going to reach out to this organization because everybody needs to hear about this organization, what they are doing to make our police officers more resilient, stronger, how they can tap into becoming more courageous in their profession and what it actually looks like. Because we're not talking about learning how to, fire your gun better or how to run into a building faster. We're not talking about the tactical part. We're talking about prepping the mind, prepping the body, things we talk about in mindfulness with our own workshops, how to be the best you, because let's face it, we've got targets on our backs. Okay. And I say you and I are out, we're retired, but it doesn't go away.
Right.
We
still
run
towards
towards the gunfire. You're like house fire, you're like, where, with your fire background as well. So, our guests tonight are going to really, we're going to dive in deep. And I really want to encourage everybody listening and watching out there. We have the comment stream is already open. Hey, Karen, thanks for joining us. So the comment stream is open. As they're explaining what they do, please ask questions, because the more questions we get, they explain their programming, and it is awesome programming. The better the conversation. So without further ado, I'm gonna bring our guests onto into the stream here, and Chief Kristin Ziman. She started her law enforcement career as an Aurora police cadet in 1991, and in 1994 she took an oath to serve and protect and become a sworn police officer. Throughout her career, she wasn't your typical cop. And she lived by the motto, never look down on anyone, look at them. Kristin became known as the police officer that could talk offenders into handcuffs. As a young officer, she became a field training officer and then joined APD's community policing unit. She led by example and encouraged her peers to get out of their squad cars and walk down the block to interact with the community. In the late 90s, Kristin moved to APD's investigations division, where she saw that domestic violence victims were not getting the support that they needed. So she launched the Domestic Violence Reduction Unit, which was a specialized unit within investigations to investigate and arrest those responsible for domestic violence. And in 2003, she became one of the very few females ever to be promoted to sergeant. 5 years later, a mentor suggested to Kristin that she test to become a lieutenant, something no other female had ever done in the history of the department. And when others learned about her intentions, she was told, like, sorry, guys, I got the same thing. Kind of stay where you are. Don't test because, girls can't do that job. And that lit a fire inside Kristin, and she asked herself, hey, why not me? So in 2008, she took the lieutenant's test. Not only did she take the test, but she kicked its rear end and placed first on the promotions list. Shortly thereafter, she became the first female lieutenant in the history of the Aurora Police Department. In 2010, Kristin became the first ever female commander at the department. And she continued her passion of community policing and helped build long-lasting relationships with the community, which led to a huge reduction in crime. In fact, as part of her community policing effort, the city of Aurora documented 0 murders in 2012. Let me say that again, 0 murders in 2012. In 2016, Kristin busted through barriers again and became the first female police chief in the 159-year history of the Aurora Police Department. She is always working to better herself through the community, continuing education and training. She holds her associate's degree from Waubonsie, I hope I got that right, Community College, a bachelor's from Aurora University, and a master's from Boston University. She also has a second master's degree. She stays busy, folks.
Wow.
In Homeland Security and Defense from the Naval Postgraduate School in Monterey, California. Go Navy. And Kristin is a graduate of PERF's, a Senior Management Institute for Police, the FBI National Academy, and several other leadership programs. She believes that we can better law enforcement and community relationships overall by working together, not just on a community level, but on a regional and nationwide level. And next to Chief Kristin is Michael Nila. Michael was recognized as one of the nation's foremost authorities in the leadership practices of great leaders and organizations. Michael's mission is to inspire individuals and teams to achieve their highest potential and contribution. A passionate educator, he has led hundreds of hours of research and consulting projects, which has translated into groundbreaking training programs, keynotes, and seminars. These initiatives have helped leaders and organizations worldwide realize breakthrough solutions and results. For 29 years, he's honed his leadership skills while serving his nation in the policing profession before retiring as a police commander with the Aurora, Illinois Police Department. As a police officer, he served in many capacities, including patrol detective, SWAT commander, area commander, and led the department's re-engineering from a traditional police agency to a community policing department. He refers to the policing profession as his vocation, believing that policing is the noblest of professions. His vast experience in the field has made him the trainer of choice for police agencies and communities across the globe, not just here in the U.S. He travels extensively. You might actually see his screen moving because he still is traveling right now to deliver his trademark real-world perspective to contemporary workplace issues. He's trained and certified thousands of employees, executives, and trainers, such as, with the U.S. Department of Justice, Chicago PD, LAPD, NYPD, United Nations, as well as the military, government agencies, and Fortune 500 companies. He is the founder and managing partner of Blue Courage, an organization committed to the design and delivery of world-class personnel and organizational development solutions that unleash the untapped potential within. He's also certified master trainer in resilience by HeartMath. We talked about that with John when we just gave our workshop. And he's also a certified instructor for Simon Sinek's Start With Why. Fantastic book. If you haven't read it, pick it up. Woo!
Woo! That was a mouthful, Sam.
Kristin, welcome to Mad Radio.
And we're out of time.
Yeah, and I'm exhausted.
Me too.
It is so important that we connect the folks worldwide with you all to understand that it's your background and where you came from that allows you to understand and have a huge mission that betters the lives of our law enforcement. So you guys deserve the full reading of your bios. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Yeah.
You bet. So if you don't mind, Kristin, I'm going to start with you because like I said in the intro, we didn't meet like, hey, Kristin, I'm Sam. Hey, Sam. NYPD was putting on their resiliency symposium. You were a presenter. We talked about awe. It was a fantastic way to not only introduce, but hammer home the idea of resiliency and what you're doing. When I went onto bluecourage.com and saw the vast leadership training and educational opportunities for our men and women in blue and beyond, I was like, oh my God, this all is like one thing fitting together. So let's talk about awe, how it relates to resiliency, and how you have brought that into kind of the Blue Courage model.
So the funny part of this story is that I was invited to the Awe Symposium to speak on a panel with the doctor who was I think the subject matter expert for the movie Inside Out, for all of the emotions. And so it really had nothing to do with Blue Courage. It was just, let's talk about, so I didn't know what I was doing there in the first place. I felt I was like, why do you want me on there? Well, my police department went through a mass shooting in 2019, and I talk a lot about resiliency. So I think that's why I was invited. But as I kind of went into the symposium blind, and as I started listening to the doctor speak, it reminded me of everything that we had done when the inception of Blue Courage. So I that's when I started to bring that into the conversation. So it wasn't supposed to be really about Blue Courage, but what I noticed was it wasn't necessarily about policing, but yet everything that they were saying in the psychological terminology was everything that we're doing through Blue Courage. And so that's what made me bring up Blue Courage. So what you don't know actually is that Michael was one of my first supervisors when I came on as a police cadet in the police department. And he's the one who truly, he would talk about a mentor through the police department who actually he got it before anyone else did. And so as a young patrol officer, I just followed Michael around and he dragged me to Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I went to go see him speak. And so Michael is the one that truly lit the fire for me. We didn't have a name for any of this stuff, positive psychology, Blue Courage. This was not even born yet, not even a twinkle in his eye. But so I started teaching with him. And then, Michael went on to launch this, this business and this curriculum when he retired, and I began teaching for him. So we were sitting in his living room, trying to talk about what are we missing in policing? What is it that police need? Because we're really good at all of the tactical stuff. We're really good about, the teaching people 40-hour firearms qualifications, defensive tactics, where, we're great at learning the elements of a crime. But all of the other stuff that make a police officer, nobody talks about that, about hope and resilience, about the nobility of policing, which is the attachment to purpose. And so we sat in his living room for, months on end and came up with this curriculum that no one had ever seen before. So that's how, this kind of all got, just to set the foundation of that Awe Symposium and how that all came to be. And then you just managed to stumble upon it, and here we are. So I'll stop there, and you can, take what you want from that or turn it over to Michael.
Let me just interject on one thing. And, Kristin, you said it perfectly. And Michael, I commend you. And I was watching a TV show. I wasn't watching because I never watch police shows. My wife was watching a police show last night, and it was new because they have them face masks on. They're all doing that pandemic stuff. But they had an academy class come out, and the first thing the FTO said to the rookie was, forget about everything you learned in the academy.
Yeah.
That's your first downfall. And I think a lot of our FTOs, though they're senior officers, are out there saying, kid, forget about what you learned in the academy. This is the real streets, right?
Yep.
I think we're losing the mentors for our academy people that come out. They get their training, but all of a sudden they're told or peer pressured in to losing everything they learned by some seasoned, maybe cynical, maybe burnt out FTO who doesn't really even want to be there to begin with, So I think a mentor like Michael is, perfect, right for the job. FTO should emulate what Michael has started, because look at a product of a young officer like you, Kristin, right? You've excelled to police chief. You scored high, but without mentorship, if someone would have said to you, hey, Kristin, just follow me, let's do our job, you may have taken a different path.
Oh, absolutely. And you bring up something you're peeling the onion layers away as we talk about where we are in the state of policing right now. How often do you hear the term bad apples and, where are all the good apples? And what's so interesting about that is, I've heard it said that I wish I could give credit where I heard this because I can't take it, but someone said we need to stop trying to figure out, the bad apples. We need to figure out how to pair the tree. And that speaks to what you just said. It goes as far back as into the beginning of the process when we vet people and, take them through a background check, psychological, and then as you move through the academy, right, they're building on that culture and gaining knowledge. And then they go into the field training program. And if those field training officers try to undo everything that has been done, then, this is what the product is going to be, a subpar officer that's taking on, a bad attitude. It's if you're a healthy person and you walk into an unhealthy environment, you too will become unhealthy. And
right.
And so, that is the most important, one of the most important roles in a police department is that of a field training officer. So they need to be the best of the best. So that's a great point that you bring up.
Another thing you brought up, which I really connect with, is the community policing aspect. When I got on a job in the early 90s, right, Giuliani and Bratton, Commissioner Bratton, brought the community policing, CPOP, to fruition in New York, where you walk patrol. You were out of the squad car, but you communicated with the residents, the business owners. You knew them by name. You knew them on a personal level. They knew you. They knew who you were about. You weren't the bad apple. You weren't that bad cop. Everybody in uniform wasn't bad. Hey, John the cop, he's a good guy because I get to talk to him. He looks at, he patrols the streets. He's out talking. And I think we lose that in our officers when they're inside a patrol car doing 35, 40 mile an hour down the street, not paying attention to the community around them.
Yeah. Welcome back, Michael. Yeah, we've been talking about you a lot, and every time we want to transition, ask you a question, it drops off. But no worries, you're here. And let me just go back, and then we'll pick up the community policing, because what we were talking about was the importance of being a mentor. And Michael, you were a huge mentor to Kristin, and what John and I try to get across in our workshops, and it's a new idea, but it's not a new idea, is that when you get to a certain part in your career, usually between 10, 15, 15, 20, it's time to reinvent. It's time to decide to either take all of your knowledge, and we lost Michael again. All right, Chief, this is you. Take all of the knowledge and mentor, or just stay that cynical, you get the reputation, capital A. So you can be that person, or you can decide right there, hey, I'm going to use everything that I know to help the guys, and I mean girls as well, help the new recruits coming up, because I'm still here. I can still make a difference.
Yeah, so I'm going to answer this from Michael's perspective, and I hope I do it justice, but he has told me many times before that he got a lot of flack, believe it or not, for being a progressive-minded police officer. And I love he's told me the story so many times, and I'm just kind of befuddled by it. But he was the one who encouraged me. The reason that my resume and my education is what it is because of him. And he used to bring in academic materials to school or to the police department. So he'd be reading a book, and he'd have a pile of books, and people started making fun of him. The other cops were making fun of him, like, what's the matter with you, man? Why are you studying all the time? And he said, it was so interesting because, there are people that had questionable magazines in their desk, and, no one ever gave them any issue about that. But Michael had to, fight off people who were chastising him for being an academic. And that was before, it was cool to go back to school, and, where it was just like street smarts. That's the only degree you need. And so Michael, I'm speaking on your behalf, pretending that I'm you. What he did is he pushed me. I remember being so frustrated at sometimes when he would, ask something of me or to go read this book. And I'm like, man, this is not in my job description right now, and so it was, he pushed and he pushed. And so, but there are people who do that, or who show up in your life and do that. But then it's you have to be receptive to it, And as a young cop, I know that he influenced so many people, But he also, I know that there was a lot of resistance to that. Mm-hmm. Michael, we're talking about how you were.
Michael, when we got you speak.
Yeah. Go ahead.
And finally, I'm going to hurry up and say something, but first of all, kudos to you, Sam and John, for the work that you're doing. Heroic work, and without your work, our profession wouldn't be advancing, and resilience wouldn't be alive, in our organizations. And I heard a lot of what Kristin said, and I couldn't be more proud of her than I am, because the success of the police department is her leadership, where she has led and created a culture within the police department that reflects the principles and practices of Blue Courage. And we see the evidence of how that works in growing, developing human beings and advancing our profession as well, all of which helps us serve better. So, I'm just flattered to be a part of this, and Kristin said she's being me. I think we are both very much reflections of each other. But interestingly enough, you were talking about veterans and first responders. I happen to be in the car with two Blue Courage trainers from FLETC, the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center. We just finished. We're doing pilot Blue Courage courses for the Nevada National Guard, and we customize Blue Courage to the military, and we call it Purple Resolve. And we're talking about all the issues that Kristin has been laying out. So we're hoping that these principles will be adopted literally as a model from the Nevada National Guard nationwide to help prevent suicides, create healthier, airmen, soldiers, Marines, and Coast Guardsmen. So we're really, really proud about how Blue Courage is advancing to save lives and help grow better, more healthy, flourishing human beings.
May I ask one question about Blue Courage? Because I know me and Sam haven't had really a lot of resistance with the badge of honor, but we've seen a lot of resistance from some departments who, you two are commanders, and I'm sure you accepted any type of mental health support from outside agencies. A lot of people are very resistant now to accept that because they, like I said, and I'm just going to be the New Yorker myself. They don't want to get into a pissing match, or they're like, nope, my department has the best peer support group that can do this, and they don't want any outside help. Are you guys feeling any of that resistance?
Yeah. Well, so
yeah,
I yeah, go ahead, Michael.
Yeah, I was just going to say, just General Barry, Andre Barry, who's the adjutant general here for the military in Nevada, he said it best. The reason he reached out to us is he said, we have in the military the finest resiliency programs, the final mental health programs, the finest suicide prevention programs, and the numbers are not getting better, they're getting worse. So something is missing. It's that what Kristin was saying, the endless hours we spent in my living room talking about what's missing, what's the missing ingredient. Yeah, and that's what we set out to do. What is missing in how we train and educate our police? Because there are gaps between what we want our police officers, our military, our first responders to be, and how we educate and train them and lead them. There's giant gaps. We want them to be A, B, and C, but that's not how we're orienting them. We're orienting them in a very different way. And so Blue Courage, Purple Resolve now in the military was designed to close those gaps between how we are traditionally trained and how we need to be shaped and guided and led to unleash that talent and create healthy, happy, flourishing human beings. And you are exactly right, John. I talked to a police psychologist at NYPD who told me that everything that we're teaching in Blue Courage is BS. Only he used the actual word, not BS. And I was stunned. I said,
No
wait a minute,
shocker.
Wow.
Yeah, I said, you're a police psychologist. He said, I know. That's why I know all this is BS. And I said, what, you don't believe in the ability of shaping and developing human beings? Oh yeah, I do believe that, but this is all BS. And so that mindset prevails, and it's dead wrong.
That's coming from a man with education, a psychologist who's now, I got into a shooting back in 1993. I spent 5 minutes with our department psychologist who asked if I was okay or having bad dreams. And I only saw him 48 hours after the shooting. So I was still hyped up and amped up. I really didn't, I didn't have any bad dreams. And it was like, oh, you're okay. Here's your gun back, blah, blah, blah. And that's, like you just said, that's the culture. And then when we have psychologists who are within our own department who are preaching the outside stuff is BS, what are our young officers looking at? They are going to be looked at. They're going to look towards person in our department, person in the department. They're going to emulate them, and we're going to lose more and more officers.
So here's the conundrum is that, and Kristin and Michael, I want you to chime in on this. I have been talking about the NYPD and their quote unquote so-called programs for John, 3 years, and how there's a disconnect. Like the All Symposium and everything that Jeff does to bring people together, the numbers that are reported, the people that are supposedly on it. He's on the job in New York. And to hear what Michael said, to kind of do my own deep dive and be like, wait a second, where are all the people that they're talking about are here to help, their police officers if they ask for help? Like, they're not even in the state of New York. So how does that even happen? And here we are again, listening to what you said. There is, until command, in my opinion, until command decides to wrap their heads around what it means to be part of this thin blue line, this blue family, you have to give your folks the best chance for them to be successful in a career that right now is the most dangerous career to have on the planet. And it continues to not be that way. Why? I mean, where do they
I will tell you, I Here's one of the big disconnects, and if we're just talking about NYPD, but you can take this across the country. One of the big things that distinguish Kristin Ziman, and there are more Kristin Zimans out there. There's a lot of great police leaders out there. Unfortunately, they're not indicative of the whole. But one of the things Kristin brings to the table is you talked about wrapping our head around it. No, our leaders need to wrap their hearts around this issue. I call it, we need a mind shifting mind. No, we need to be heart washed. That's one of the cores of Blue Courage, is that when we put our heart into this, magic happens. That's the beginning of transformation. Policing is not an intellectual exercise. Leadership is not an intellectual exercise. These are exercises born in the heart. And so part of Blue Courage's awakening is to light that fire in the heart, taking the armor off the soul and letting our heart get into the game. Because we're really good at lip service, saying the right things, talking resilience, quoting the Simon Sinek's of the world. But we don't have the kind of courage it takes to have the moral will to lead our police departments and take on perhaps the mayors and funders. Kristin fought with her city manager or our city financial guy about her training budget being totally out of whack in comparison to departments around her. And Kristin, I hope I'm not getting this wrong, but Kristin said, yes, and I'll fight you to the death if you try to take my training budget away. 99% of police chiefs would have said, okay, how much do you want me to cut? And that training is what led to the nearly perfect response to that mass shooting. And so we don't always have the leaders who are willing to implement a Blue Courage the right way. And NYPD officers will tell you this. There's some that will tell you Blue Courage saved my life. There's others that will tell you it's BS. You know what the difference is? Who taught their classes. So when you treat it like a machine and you have 100 people appointed to teach Blue Courage and they don't want to do it, but then you put them in front of a group of officers, big shock what the impact is. But you put a passionate Kristin Ziman, a Michael Nila, a George Belsky or a David Lau who were in the car with me, put them in front of police officers and their life changes.
Yeah,
so
and your curriculum, talk about filling the gap. So we have Karen Solomon from Blue Help on, and she makes a point, does anybody truly have all the answers? We need a wide range of solutions so that something appeals to somebody and you save them. So therapy turtle, pet rock, resiliency training, heart math. And she says, I'm a fan of heart math too, whatever it takes. Amen. When I want people to listen here. When you go on Blue Courage's website, that is what you see. It is not, hey, if you're a first responder, you need this course. If you're in command, you need this course. It is an entire, you're swimming in a library of excellence. And maybe I'm cut from a different cloth, like you're, Michael. I'm about that. Sure, I had my crap days, and the career can't be all rainbows every single day. But I learned after post-traumatic stress that you can't stop learning. You can't. You have got to align yourself with all of the skills, all of the knowledge, all of the training, all of the experience that is going to help propel your life forward. Because if you stand still with post-traumatic stress, that's when this goes nuts.
Well, I'm gonna chime in on that, because I'm just gonna say, in a current state of conversation around the nation right now, right, it's making it 100 times harder, because now cops are not even looking on how they can make a difference anymore. They're looking on how they could survive the day, and when is retirement? How close is retirement?
How do they get out?
When can I get out? So, you got those young officers that are getting ridiculed. They don't have this. They don't have the backing of their political leaders, right? So you got the young officers out there that have no direction, and you're not going to find the Kristins. You're not going to find the Michaels. You're not going to find that diamond in the rough, because nobody is willing to brush off the dirt to see what's in there. Now all they're looking for is a paycheck and getting out and being safe and getting back home with their families. If we do not take control soon, we will see, and Karen's on here, we are going to see After retirement, because guys love this job. We are cut from a cloth, like you said, from no other. This is not a job profession. This is a calling, right? It's a calling. You want to lay down your life for another or for a stranger. That's a calling. That's not a job, right? If I'm going to go die for somebody that I don't know, God did something to me, right? But after we get off the job, after we lose that sense of calling, we are going to see a huge spike in suicides. We are going to see a large number of officers having mental health issues, family violence, and divorce rates are going to skyrocket like we were back in the 1970s. We got to get a handle on this.
You know, John, if I could chime in.
Sure.
Yeah.
I agree with you so much. We did a course, a Blue Courage course a ton of Blue Courage courses for the San Francisco Police Department. Chief Officer, before he retired, said to me, you know, this is wonderful for our police officers, but you know who I'm scared to death about? Our retired guys. I have retired guys commit suicide, drinking themselves to death, that are miserable. Can you do something for them? And so we put together a course called Blue Courage Emeritus, and it was for retired officers. And we had the most incredible experience teaching these retired folks these principles and practices, you know, and it changed their life. We cannot forget our retired cops because we retire young in this profession, number one. And number two, this moment we're in is leading to a lot of people retiring before they were ready, before they intended to, under the worst of conditions, and they're leaving with a horrific taste in their mouth.
Right.
And we're doing nothing to make them whole. And yes, that's a very scary place to leave them.
I don't know a department out there, maybe you guys are in a command position and got a lot more insider, that does retirement transition. We have veterans that transition out of the military, right? We do not have a retirement transition. The only thing we have and I knew in the NYPD was, this is the medical plan you could pick, drop your badge off at the door, see ya, and you're out, right? No resources given. How am I going to feel after the job? How am I going to feel 30 days after not putting on that uniform? How am I going to feel a year from now? Is my family going to be able to deal with me being home? You know, we have to provide those resources to these retiring officers, or, like I said, we're going to have a lot of issues in the future.
John, you said something earlier, and it's kind of I can wrap it up in a little bow. I know you wanted to talk about community policing, but this all comes from the same place. So, how many departments out there check a box for community policing? Absolutely. We have a community policing unit, X amount of police officers are in there. But truly, you talk about community policing, police legitimacy, relational policing, community engagement. They're all word salads. And, but what it absolutely means is, going back to, the Sir Robert Peel days, where that was before the buzzword of community policing, but so many departments don't walk that talk. They just check the box. The same with mental health and wellness of officers. Yep. Absolutely. We have peer support. We have a CIT team. We call in the experts, and that's how it was in my department. And I hate to be disparaging, over past, administration and my past peers that I worked with. But that was the culture, is that we checked every single box. And I got a phone call one night from a police officer, not even in my chain of command, who told me that he couldn't sleep because he had just gone to an accident on the tollway, and he brought a state trooper out of his squad car who was on fire. He climbed up on the tollway worker's truck, who was trapped in the vehicle, and smashed a hole in the windshield, reached in and held his hand until the man died so he wouldn't be alone. So this guy calls me. This is a big, tough, burly cop. And he calls me and he says, I'm struggling right now. And I said, just stay on the phone with me. So the following morning, I went to my fellow peers. This is when I was a commander. And I said, hey guys, we need to be better. It's not enough, because he didn't feel comfortable calling, the peer support. He didn't feel comfortable doing any of that. And I said, we have to be better at this. Yeah. And my fellow commander said, what a mamby-pamby. And I had to look that up. I didn't know what it meant, but it is not And he said something to the effect of, man, if you can't handle this job, then get out. And I thought, this is the problem. This is still that wasn't that long ago. And that's
Right.
when I decided in that moment that if I ever get in, and I, of course you can be a leader where you are, but I thought if I can ever get to this point in my career or the top of an organization, the first thing I'm going to do is try to change the culture and actually offer true help and not just the check the box kind of help. But that's what we're up against is this. We still are fighting the machismo, suck it up, buttercup.
Yep. But you bring up a great point with the officer. You know, we got our CIT teams, right? We got our crisis intervention teams. We are built on a knee-jerk reaction. I know, Kristin, you had the mass shooting in your department, right? So that's when we bring our CIT teams out. When it's something media worthy or public worthy, right? But how about that young officer who just performed CPR on a SIDS death, right?
Yeah.
Did we ask him if he was okay? Maybe some officers can deal with that. Maybe some can't. Did we say no? But what we did was we let that officer do CPR, pass him off to the paramedics, and then go on the robbery call or go on the trespassing call. Not enough time to decompress or process that he just gave mouth to mouth to a child. We overlook the small little traumas because we think, hey, we're robots, we can handle it. And those little traumas are what causes the big trauma. The big traumas we get over. It's the little compression traumas every day that work on our brains.
It fills that John and I talk about. You have the filing cabinet, and your filing cabinet, that drawer is only so big. So over a career, you can only put so many traumas in there. And this is why I think I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about the Blue Courage programming, because this is where I think that the conversation needs to take place with officers that are, maybe part of associations to say, hey, we already know our mental health budgets are below the paper clips. Okay. We're trying to change it. In the meantime, you need to learn how to be the best officer you can up here and here. We are one human body. We are not, we don't take our heads off every night and put it over here. And so take advantage of programming that is out there. Not take advantage of going to talk therapy and sitting on a couch, to educational programming and workshops that build your resiliency, that make this stronger, so that when you are transitioning from the kid that you just did CPR mouth to mouth on, who unfortunately expired from SIDS, to the robbery call, we know about adrenaline. We know it's, this and this, and it takes a while, 1 to 2 hours to come down. We're not going to get that 1 to 2 hours. So what do we do after the call? Go. Programming. Yeah.
Michael, do you want to take that? You want to talk about the curriculum?
Yeah, I can, but I just want to say one generic comment about what Blue Courage does. I spoke in it, particularly pre-COVID. I spoke at a rash of resilience seminars, suicide prevention, peer support, and conferences, and in fact, in 2 weeks, I'm speaking at an FBI NNA resilience conference. And so, the fascinating thing to me is when I go to these conferences and we have the world's best people speak, 90% of them, if not more, are talking about, what do we do when the problem emerges? What do we do when the crisis hits? Peer support programs, and I think policing is pretty darn good once we identify somebody who might need help or somebody who's in crisis. Blue Courage is about prevention. Blue Courage is about strengthening the capacity to be able to deal with change and challenge and the stressors of this job, so that when those moments hit, we're not as traumatized. We're not as ill prepared for it. It's a state of readiness that prepares us for those moments, so they're not as catastrophic. So we're teaching police officers how literally self-care. I don't particularly like that word, but that's really what it is. We're teaching our cops how to take care of themselves.
Yep.
And so we're about prevention focus. That's really what we're about. And so we focus on things like, through heart math and now even not just heart math, but Stephen Kotler, who's the key authority in the world on flow and getting into the key psychological state that optimizes performance. We're working with him. We're creating pilot programs to hopefully to work with him to train cops on how do we optimize this performance? How do we learn things like, he calls them non-negotiables. Sleep is a non-negotiable to optimizing performance. Hydration, a non-negotiable. Positive supporting cast, whether social life, non-negotiables to optimizing performance. And policing suffer those, right? So we're...
Oh, we almost made it with them. We almost made it.
Because one of the things we learn is biology is always going to win the day.
Right.
But
biology is going to win. Right.
The body's going to do. It's going to win the day. So how do we learn to use our biology and maximize that physiological potential and release the neurochemicals that position us for optimizing performance? We don't know that stuff. In Blue Courage, we had to learn it so we could teach other people. Positive psychology is such a powerful piece of this because, our hallmark in policing is cynicism and apathy. Countdown apps. Can't wait till I'm out of here because my retirement date is a parole date. So we're teaching these building blocks of human effectiveness that we never get in our police careers. And quite honestly, human beings don't get them in life because we don't teach those things in school. We don't teach them in college. Unfortunately, we have to learn them for ourselves. Well, Blue Courage is teaching those things to our police officers.
That's great.
That's great. Yeah, it is a full curriculum, and we're coming up on time here, so I want to give you guys the last word here. When we have guests on, we always ask, what is your message to our law enforcement officers out there right now?
Well, I think it's a little bit of building on what Michael just said, is that, law enforcement and what we've spoken about tends to be, there's a reason that officers develop, these kind of stigmas. And I call it the 1,000 tiny cuts. It's all of the things that they have seen. Sometimes it's not just one incident, but it's that film reel of things that go over and over in our heads. And so when over time, that's why we come in and we raise our right hand and we're just so excited to get out there, and then the 1,000 tiny cuts happen. And pretty soon, that is all we see in our film reel, right? But the part about Blue Courage is that you can start to recognize when that happens. And that's what Michael's talking about, the prevention. And that's what I was talking about, kind of to bring it full circle on the Awe Symposium, is that, our default is negativity. It's just like if you're a mechanic and you work on broken cars all day, you will eventually start to believe that all cars are broken, and a police officer who is going to, the worst of the worst, no one calls 911, to have a cup of coffee together. It's when something horrific has happened. And so there has to be that moment in time where we can control our thoughts, and that the nature of our thoughts clearly influence every aspect of our lives. So that's what the positive psychology module teaches, is stop, and you have to seek out positivity. And sometimes that means just going into, the heart math, into, rescue breathing. But there are ways that you can physiology, use your body, your own physiology, to change your mindset and your body, your physical body. So all of this coming together is what we're trying to do with Blue Courage. And that's absolutely right, is learning to recognize these moments as they are happening and unfolding, so you can stop them so they don't get out of hand, and you're not, trying to put a gun to your head, when you get off shift, that's what it's all about, is saving lives.
Absolutely. Michael, your message?
Yeah, I lost you when you were asking a question, but from following Kristin, I think it's, what would our message be right now? My message, if I had one thing I wanted to communicate, it would be, fall back in love with this job. the nobility of policing. Learn to interrupt the patterns of cynicism and inappropriate thoughts that don't serve us, that deplete us. And where will you find that? You'll find it grounded in the principles of the nobility of what we do. How you felt when you raised your hand, you took that oath, and being the guardians of this sacred democracy that we call America, the longest running, democracy in the history of the world. So when we dig deep into our purpose, as Simon Sinek says, when the why gets fuzzy, all kinds of bad stuff begins to happen. Stephen Kotler says it's impossible to be depressed, impossible to commit suicide in the face of purpose. Can't do it because you're driven by something deep inside. And so the big thing I message to my police officers: fall back in love with what you do. And when you can fall back in love with it and be in awe that we get to do this, we get to help people at their darkest moments, we get to see the human condition at its most beautiful and at its most ugly. And we get to do that, to be in awe of this job, not to be in darkness about it.
I love that.
I love that. Yeah. So I've been putting on the comment stream so everybody can see. You want to find out more, visit bluecourage.com. And can people, when they land on the website, can they just register and sign up for stuff, or is there like a registration process that you go through?
Yeah, probably the easiest thing is just shoot us an email, and I think it's info@bluecourage, or shoot me an email, michael@bluecourage.com, or Kristin, and we will reach out to you, because there's so many different opportunities that we have, and so many different access points, and so many different things we can do. So that's probably the easiest and fastest way to get some answers.
Excellent. So, thank you guys so much for being our guests, and just really spreading that word, and we'll say it, to fall back in love with what you do. Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
John?
The one thing I want to say to both of you is and with Karen if Karen is still on, she'd probably agree with me. And I do this to all our first responders that have been giving help to other first responders. On September 26th, if you can, like I said, we're building that Heroes Bridge Memorial Park right here in Dallas, Texas. We would love to have you guys come out as guests on September 26th. We're going to do a Hands Across the Bridge. We'd like to meet and greet with you and share your story with the people that will join us on the bridge that day. If you can make it, we would love to have you. So you have an open invite.
Is that the 20th? I thought it was the 25th.
Karen's running a three-day seminar. She's doing the gala. She's doing a children's camp for.
I just want to make sure they have the right date.
Yep, it's the 24th, 25th, and 26th. So the 26th we'll be doing Hands Across the Bridge. We'll have the gala on the 25th, and then the children's camp, suicide camp, on 24th. So both of you, please, you're more than welcome. If you're open, we would love to have you here in Dallas with us.
Yeah,
Sounds wonderful.
We'll try and fit that into Michael's calendar, because you'll also see all the events that they have. It's like COVID never happened. You are on the road.
Yeah,
I love it. Well, yeah. Thank you guys again. I'll be including all that information in an email to you as well. And most importantly, stay safe out there.
Yes.
Really, truly. Thank you for what you do. Yeah, for making a difference.
God bless.
We'll be in touch. Thank you.
Right.
Yeah, thank you.
Right.
Kristin, thank you. Love you. Bye.
Wow.
Amazing. Kristin and Michael, I mean, he's an amazing mentor. We need more people like that on the job to bring more Kristins onto the job like that. That is a match made in heaven. The two amazing commanders from the Aurora, Illinois Police Department that are staying focused on the job. And I loved his quote at the end, man, fall in love with the job.
Learn to fall back in love. Yeah. Yep. And actually, if you go on bluecourage.com, you'll see, a lot of police officers that are part of the movement and everything that they do. And so that's what they've learned. They've learned to fall back in love and then pay it forward. And, the way to make a difference in your life if you're a first responder or you're a supporter of Mad Radio and what we do is, show some love to yourself. And while you're doing that, show some love to us. And the best way you can do that is if you're listening on Facebook, thank you so much. Jump on over to our YouTube channel, which you go to youtube.com and look up Mad Radio Texas, the whole word Texas, and follow us there. And then if you're listening to us or watching us on YouTube, jump on over to the Facebook, and you can find us by going to facebook.com. And in that search with the little magnifying glass, you put in Mad Radio, and it's at Making a Difference TX on Facebook, and follow us there. And so you'll never miss a preview. You'll never miss a show. You'll know when we're on. You can also on our Facebook, hey, I've uploaded all of the books. They're on there. Show some love to these amazing authors who paid it forward by using the hardest part of what they went through and bearing their hearts in these books. And you can purchase a book. And, every week we talk about there's so many organizations making a difference out there. And, John and I, we started our organization, A Badge of Honor. And so if you want to really help first responders, you go on to abadgeofhonor.com. At the top, you'll see Mad Radio /donate. Go ahead, click on that, and every penny counts, because with our new partnership that we just formed with the Veterans Resource and Outreach Center, we are going to be expanding the programming to do so much more, and we can't do it without you. So jump on over there to abadgeofhonor.com and help us out and show first responders some love. And speaking of love, we are thinking about all of the first responders out there. We are sending you prayers every day. We want you to come home safe. So to everyone protecting us right here on the home front, we've got your back. If you need help, like what Kristin was saying, you got off a really bad call, you can't sleep, ask for help. You don't have to do it in the department. There are so many places you can go outside the department. And please give yourself the love that you deserve right there. And for all of our military who are protecting us overseas, that give us the ability to do this show every single week, thank you. We love you. John, take us home.
I usually have a great quote at the end of our show, but you know what? I think Michael said it all. That really resonated with me. I think that's a very powerful statement about, re-fall in love with the job. It's what your calling is. And, I can't say it no better than Michael. He really hit it on the head. All I could say is today is not the day to give up, and stay strong.
Until next week, everybody. Thank you.
Stay safe.